The PlayStation has been around for 30 years, the PlayStation 2 for 26 years, the PS3 for 20 years and the PS4 for 13 years. If you have them all, there's definitely plenty to play. But do you really need them all, or are 2 PlayStation consoles enough for it? Hey everyone! Yes, you read the title correctly. If you want to experience 30 years of PlayStation, you essentially need 2 PlayStation consoles here. Sure, there's also the option where if you have the PlayStation Plus, you get access to Sony's catalog, which include classics as well. But it's kind of like Nintendo and the Switch Online retro games, it's tied to a subscription, and especially with PlayStation, some games have to be streamed and not every game is available there. In this video we'll cover what you can actually play on disc or digitally if that's your thing. And the consoles that you're needing is a PS5, of course, to play the PS5 games and also the PS4 games. And of course you need a PlayStation 3 to play the PS1 to the PS3 games. But it has to be a specific model, but more on that later. Yeah, because with these 2 consoles you've really got nearly 30 years of PlayStation covered. Yeah, I know the PSP and the PS Vita are missing, but let's focus on home consoles for now. That's because there's a bit of a difference when it comes to backwards compatibility here. On the one hand, there's compatibility at a hardware level and at a software level. Hardware level compatibility is the best solution, because it includes the console's components like the CPU or GPU. Take the PS2 as an example. Early models still use the PS1's processor, but the GPU has to be emulated. And that brings us to backwards compatibility at a software level, which is essentially emulation, replicating the hardware as closely as possible. Unfortunately, this can never be as perfect as at a hardware level or on a dedicated console, and it also requires processing power. However, it is inexpensive to implement. The PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible to the PS4 at a hardware level, since the APU inside the PS5 is based on the PS4. In other words, it's the same x86 architecture than on the PS4, and the GPU inside it is also one from AMD. Sony has tested a dozen games on the PS5 itself, and the games that run on the PS5 perform even better than they do on the PS4. Even better than on the PS4 Pro! And Sony's implementation is really seamless. Personally, when I pop a PS4 game into the PS5, I don't even think about it that there is a PS4 game in it. And for the PlayStation VR gamers among you, the PSVR 2 isn't backwards compatible, for some reason only Sony knows. But the first generation PSVR can also be used with the PS5 with a camera adapter. You can only get them from Sony or, these days, used on eBay. However, this isn't perfect. There are a handful of games that simply cannot run on the PS5 whatsoever, but those games that are pretty tiny. It's like a SingStar game, 1 Hitman title, and I think 4 other, but yeah. Okay, but then I would think... Oh, that sounded terrible. Okay, but let's switch focus for a bit, because the PS3 can play PS1 and PS2 games, but only some models of the PS3. So Sony really went all out with what they wanted to offer with the PS3. Generally speaking, PS1 games run on any PS3, since they operate at a software level. And while the graphics are what you'd expect from a PS1 game, if the PS3 is connected via HDMI, it's sometimes the best way to play PS1 games on a modern television. And sometimes the disc-based games look sharper than the downloaded versions. So backwards compatibility on the PS3 with PS1 software is perfect, but it's a completely different story for PS2 games. The reason is that there are essentially 4 versions of the PS3 that can play PS2 games. 2 of them do it at a hardware level and 2 at a software level. And the only PS3 here in Europe that can play PS2 game disc is the one with the model designation CE-CHC. That's the one with the chrome finish and 4 USB ports. The other revisions were not released in Europe, including the 2 launch models that offer backwards compatibility at a hardware level. Those are the ones with the model number CE-CHB and CE-CHA. If you want a PS3 like that, good luck finding one, because it gets even harder from day to day, because those revisions are pretty rare these days. And importing them from another region is not really suitable, though the PS3 is region free for its games, the backwards compatibility is not. Therefore, if you want a PS3 that can play both PS1 or PS2 games, you'll need to buy the one for your region. But anyway, if PlayStation 2 games are running on the PS3, the image quality and everything is really good and comes pretty close to an actual PS2 console. But aside from the limitations, there's some restrictions on the PS3 with PS1 and PS2 games on it. The PS2 and PS1 save their game process on memory cards, which are plenty of them available, but they aren't exactly compatible with the PS3 since it doesn't have a slot for them. There's a USB adapter specifically for this purpose, but it's expensive. Luckily, you can create virtual memory cards on the PS3. If you have shooter games for the PS1 or PS2 that feature the light gun, be aware that these only run on a CRT monitor, but they're completely compatible with the PS3. And just like with the PS4 games running on the PS5, there are also some games on the PS3 that simply cannot run at all on the PlayStation 3. But I put a link down in the description which are compatible and which are not. And what you can also do down there is to leave a subscribe for this channel here for more videos just like this one. Or some other tech related stuff from me. And well, then I say that is everything for me, and then I can say we'll see us.